go over this events that we are likely to see in the next few days from MMA. Today, of course, we got another event parallelly, and I think that is one of the reasons why we don't have a full house today here. There's another event that we have tied up with the IIM Calcutta alumni, and that is also likely to be a monthly event, though it may not coincide every month with our event here. But today it has happened, and that could be one of the reasons. And just to tell you all, that is going to be also a very interesting event where IIM Calcutta is likely to bring in some very good business leaders to talk, and it will be a good opportunity for us to go and take part in those events as well. Today, one of the founders of Adobe is there speaking to the members, and some of the MMA members have also registered and gone for that program as well. So, when we finish off this program, the next one that is coming up from MMA is on the 11th of March. That is the flagship event of MMA, the Women Managers Convention. And you're all aware that we just saw through our annual convention a few days ago, and this is the next big event. And this is actually, respecting and also acknowledging the International Women's Day that's coming up on the 8th of March. And we have wonderful speakers like the group captain mentioned on the last occasion here. Let me just recapitulate on that. The introduction is the first session. The inaugural session is being inaugurated by Ms. Anita Sumant, who is the High Court sitting judge of Chennai. And then we have some very, very senior business leaders like Avani Davda, and we have Aarti Subramaniam, the global head of TCS, Executive Director in Global Business Delivery. So we've got very interesting speakers. We're getting a mountaineer to speak to us. We're getting a 16-year-old who has written a couple of books, remaining out of school for a year, by name Sagarika. And we also have Shreya Gadapalli. We are getting some very good speakers. So I urge upon you, whoever has not registered so far, the very few seats of course are available. You may like to look at it and register within a day or so. Following it up with that event, then we have of course workshop. The first workshop coming up is on the presentation skills. If any of you have got college going children likely to get into the corporate world shortly, you may like to recommend them for the course, because that is going to be completely focusing on the presentation skills itself. And then we have a workshop, a very interesting workshop. We have recently tied up with the International Coaching Foundation Chennai chapter, and we are going to have a one-day workshop on coaching in the 21st century workplace. So some of you are leading the organizations in leadership roles. It will be a very good interesting thing, and also for the trainers. Then we have at the same place here on the 15th a talk, Influence with Authenticity, by Mr. Koen Tan, who is international speaker and authentic communication coach from Singapore. Then on the 16th, the very next day, we have a workshop on the performance management system. 17th, we have a workshop on cultivating service excellence. And 4 weekends, that is on the Fridays and Saturdays, that's 17th, 18th, and 24th and 25th, we have a full-fledged course on Six Sigma. And also we have a 2-day certificate course during the same time on lean management. This is being conducted also by the Chennai Business School of Logistics. On the 21st, we have one program on attrition, retention, and succession planning. And on the 24th, we have a program or a workshop on employee engagement. And last, of course, the last workshop of this month is going to be an NLP in Tamil, focusing on the support staff. So we have a very good response for this program, and any of you who would like to also recommend some people or be a part of it, you are most welcome. This is what is in store for the next few days here. And without, of course, wasting any more of your time, getting ahead with this day's event today, let's all welcome Mr. John Edathattil, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and Mr. AVIS to the stage, please. Please give them a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Good to have you, Mr. John, with us, and as usual, thanks Mr. AVIS for bringing him along here. And always, as I always say this, whenever AVIS comes here, he always brings along a very, very interesting personality, something very offbeat, something out of the management and entrepreneurial purview that we normally do our the programs on. So today we have Mr. John here, who is synonymous with Gunaa. I mean, whenever we think of Gunaa, it's been a legendary, performance from Kamal Haasan in this movie, and I think most of the credit for that should go to Mr. John for having conceptualized that role and having told us that story. So on one hand we have Gunaa, on the other hand we have Kuruthipunal. Once again, from a masterpiece from Kamal and Mr. Arjun, and once again that was conceptualized and the story was told to us by Mr. John. So many more such stories. And how did the storytelling actually come about, and what is the story of the storytelling? That's what is Mr. AVIS going to tell us today. And who else but him can get the best out of the speakers out here without taking much of the time. And for those of you who are coming here for the first time to MMA, because I leave rest of the introduction about the guest today to Mr. AVIS, and let me introduce AVIS to those who are not aware, who have been not very familiar with MMA. I'm sure there may be just one or two, if at all, in here. So even for that half person who's here, let me just say that AVIS is a big supporter of MMA, a part of MMA in all of the events. He's a life coach, an inspired speaker, a happiness curator, author, and an organizational transformation consultant who leads change management, culture and leadership development mandates in the corporate sector globally. AVIS is well-known and acclaimed speaker who talks, invoking soul, provoke thought, and inspire action among the audiences as he addresses. And we are all aware of that. In the past, AVIS has been ranked among the top 10 motivational speakers in India by the Week magazine, and he says he always lives inspired by life. He is greatly influenced by Osho's philosophy, and of course, also he says that he's a big fan of Amitabh Bachchan. So we could see in most of his actions that he's of course a big fan of Amitabh, and he's going to come up with those hugs and all those things that he's famous for. So without any further ado, let me hand over to Mr. AVIS to do the honors. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Venkat. MMA is perhaps the only place where you'll see management and cricket resonate. If one group captain is not there, the other one hits a sixer. So that's Venkat for us. Thank you, Venkat, for taking over from Vijay so seamlessly. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another evening of a beautiful conversation with John. John, how are you feeling? Your mic should be on.
It's a great feeling here, especially with the very high tea. You were mentioning about the very high, it was very heavy tea, actually, or coffee. And thank you very much for this great evening with vibrant faces in front of me.
Thank you. Wonderful. So I will introduce John in a little while, but what I'm going to do is give those of you who are perhaps new to the series a little overview of why we do the series. We call this the uncommon leader because we do not bring people from a corporate background. We specifically look for people who don't have corporate or business backgrounds, and we bring stories to life here where we can learn principles that lead to empowering entrepreneurship. Now, what is empowering entrepreneurship? It's basically ownership, leadership, and excellence in delivery. That's what entrepreneurs are supposed to do, and that's what we entrepreneurs always do. And much to what we think otherwise, a lot of the uncommon leaders that we have brought here in the last year or so, this is our 11th edition of this series, and these are people that have done exemplary work with ownership, leadership, and delivery. And that's where the twain meets. And so we look for that teachable point of view. John himself is a teacher of repute here, and so this evening promises to be a lot of learning for all of us. I'm also particularly excited about the whole idea of talking to John this evening because I am a consumer of films. I must watch a film a day. That's what I do. At least, even if it's a film that I've watched already, I go back and watch it another time if it's playing on TV. And as a consumer of films, over the years, I've also learned to appreciate the teachable points of view that films offer us. And my whole idea towards films as a business, as a place where one can learn, changed with Lagan. How many of you have seen Lagan? Quite a few in the audience. Lot of people, in fact. I would have been surprised otherwise. So Lagan was a classic, is a classic, and was an epoch-defining film in its own way. And I don't know if many of you are aware that a film was made on the making of Lagan, and that film is called Chale Chalo, the lunacy of filmmaking. That's the title of the film, and it talks about the inspiring story of the creators of Lagan. I'd like to bring one point from that film and the story of the making of Lagan to our conversation this evening, just to amplify the fact that the filmmaking process and the entrepreneurial process are quite interlinked. So you are all familiar with the story of Lagan. It's set in an imaginary village, in a fictional village called Champaner, and the village, it's a period film, so the village had walls made out of mud and cow dung, like the way it would be in any village in India. So the sets were made out of cow dung and mud. Now, because the film overshot budgets, because the film overshot its tenure of shooting, they went from winter into the peak summer of Bhuj in Gujarat. And so the walls of the village houses in the village in the set started cracking up. So Ashutosh Gavarikar and Amir Khan, the film's director and producer, sent their production manager, a gentleman by the name Satyajit Bhatkal, who made this other film I'm talking about, Chale Chalo, and who also wrote this book called The Spirit of Lagan. They sent him out to fetch cow dung. Why did they want the cow dung? Because Ashutosh Gavarikar was very particular that the walls need to be replastered. Now tell me, from your memory of the film, does it matter to you and me as viewers whether the walls were plastered with cow dung or made out of plaster of Paris? It doesn't make a difference. But Ashutosh Gavarikar's argument was that the artists have to feel like villagers. So they have to get the scent of the earth, the cow dung, then they talk that language, they feel that language. So we talk about operational excellence. And here was a man using operational excellence in a very real way. So Satyajit Bhatkal could not get the requisite amount of cow dung overnight. So the project was delayed by another 3 days. But in the process, the man went all over Gujarat and picked up cow dung. So in his book, he writes that never before in the history of Indian cinema has so much bullshit gone into the making of a film. And that brings me to the synergy between the filmmaking process and the entrepreneurial process. Not that both have bullshit, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that both have vision, both have leaders practicing a set of values, innovation and creativity being part of that, the set of values. Both require very dedicated teams, both have very limited or often no resources, both have many things going wrong, and both have to have their leaders and therefore the people having the spirit of just walking. You have to keep going. No matter what the obstacles, you have to keep going. So that's the background with which I am starting this conversation with you, John, because I feel that there is a lot we can learn from the space that you work in and you come from. John is an amazing guy, ladies and gentlemen. He's a guy, you know, there is this American actor called Carrie Fisher who passed away last December. And she made a very, very profound statement, which is that take your broken heart and make it into art. And John did precisely that. It was at a very, very emotionally traumatic phase of his life that he wrote the story for Gunaa, that Group Captain Venkat was outlining. That film is a classic. It will be among the favorites for any of us in the audience or millions of people out there. John, of course, made Chanakyan before that. He wrote the screenplay for Chanakyan. He wrote the screenplay for Kuruthipunal in 1996. and for Sillunnu Oru Kadhal in 2006, among the 30-odd films over a 30-year career. But he's also been an actor, he's been a director, he's been an executive producer, a kind of all-rounder, you know, an Ashwin Ravichandran sorts of the film space. And John is currently spearheading a mission to democratize screenplay writing. What he's basically saying is that directors don't want to give credit to script writers, and script writers don't want to trust directors. So a lot of script stories are going up in smoke. So he's created a platform called screenwrite.in, where he invites script writers to trust the platform and give them the scripts, and he invites directors to pick up what they like and give credit and also a commercial part of the deal to the people that created the stories in the first place. So he wants to democratize that space where there is no trust. We'll talk about that a little later. He's also using screenwrite.in to talk to people like you and me in the corporate management space and tell us that it's possible for us to use storytelling in a big way. For us to A, tell our own stories, for us to B, talk about our team's achievements, for us to C, talk about a product's journey to the market, and D, talk about the history of our organizations. And many organizations who have been 10, 15, 25, 50 years old are operating across the country. And he says, you all have great stories, so come on, let's tell them. So that's a very unique entrepreneurial streak, very rare to find in the film space, that somebody has taken this initiative to democratize the space and to also do what is called in corporate lingo blue ocean strategy, where you go in and create a space where none existed, you know. So fantastic, John. On that count, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome John for this evening's conversation. So the way we'll have this conversation is for the next about 40-45 minutes, I'll be in conversation with John, asking him many questions, and then at the end of the conversation between us, we'll open it up for questions. As Group Captain Venkat already outlined, I have these famous free hugs going. These free hugs are for anybody who comes and claims, as long as you tell me that you were planning to leave at the question and answer point, but you stayed back because I was giving you hugs. So please don't leave the guest and the forum until the program is over. Do stay back for the Q&A and come and claim your free hugs from me, okay? And at the end of the 20-minute Q&A with the audience, we will have Group Captain Venkat back here again to wind down the evening. All set, John?
Yes, thank you.
I'm very impatient, and so my first question is really about that Carrie Fisher line. You took your broken heart and made it into art. I know that it was a very personally challenging time for you when you wrote Gunaa. But can you talk to us a little bit about, since storytelling is all about drama, let's start on a dramatic note. How did Gunaa come about? What was the catharsis that you were going through, to the extent that you would like to share?
Yeah, it's a very personal thing that happened long back at that time. I was going through a very severe personal agony at that time. And I was really committed to write a screenplay, which was supposed to be Kamal's production at that time. And it was taking me a long time to come up with a story. But why I was pulled back to work on this was because of my personal dilemma at that time. So I had a day fixed, that's on a Monday. And I was supposed to tell the story, and
tell the story to Kamal.
Tell the story to Kamal.
So you had an appointment with Kamal?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. That was sort of a deadline for that.
Okay.
And that Thursday, I remember, I got a call from home, so I had to travel to Kochi, and because of this familial chaos that was happening with me, I was continually talking and trying to solve problems within my family and myself continually for 3 days and nights. And I just got over at 5 o'clock in the morning on that Monday. Till then, I was torn apart from many angles. So I didn't know what to write. I didn't know about. I had a rough idea about the character, but I never knew what shape it should take to and what story it should develop. So I was absolutely blank about it. I went to Kochi. I took a cab from Alleppey to Kochi, and then the flight was delayed for 2 hours. It was a morning flight, and there was a cafe where I took a corner table and ordered some stiff coffees. And then I thought about myself. Where am I going to? What's happening to me? And all I could assess of me at that point of time is the denial of respect and love. So I just started asking this question to myself. Am I denied of this love which I deserved, or am I not good enough to deserve this love, or something connected with that? I just wanted to define what is pure love, connected with my own life, my own understanding of life, and my own actions and reactions that I was going through for the past 3 days, a very severe 3 days. And so it just came to me at that point that probably a pure love comes from an unadulterated love comes from a schizophrenic mind, is what really happened. There was this character which I knew already, which was around my household, who had this flair for girls. He used to talk to girls all the time, but we called him Mandan, the fool. So this was the character in mind, but it transpired into something within that 2 hours. And I was literally bleeding in my heart, and which in story writing there is this great term called writing from the heart, which gives you, where you take your input from the subconscious, then from the conscious mind, from your life experiences, from your understanding about life. And that actually transpired for a general 40 events, which I could just scribble down at that point. I'm not saying that I was a genius to do that in 2 hours. No, it was not that. It was actually my heart which was writing without much of any reason, and it came about. And then when I landed in Chennai by around 11, when I met Kamal, he was telling me, after hearing these events that I told him, he said, "Why didn't you tell me 2 months back?" I said, I never had anything 2 months back.
You didn't have anything 2 hours back?
2 hours back. And that's why, then he said it's a Gunaa-like answer. It's what he was saying at that time, I remember. But when AVIS was telling me about this question, this was about 25 years of Gunaa has passed. It was 25 years back.
Right.
And they were trying to celebrate the identity of Gunaa as a quarter century. And in most of the newspapers it was written about this, the 25 years of Gunaa was celebrated with Kamal and many things. But I realized that I was not mentioned in anywhere, but I was too very happy about it that the character surpasses the creator at some point of time.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Which is the greatest contribution my agony could contribute to that character. Beautiful. So I can talk sentences after sentences or words after words for this, but I think it's time that I stop this.
I want to just amplify 2 points here. We should not look at this answer he gave on the creation of Gunaa as a process unique to storytelling or screenplay writing or filmmaking. I think, can we put off mobiles, please? Can mobiles be on silent? Thank you so much. Yes. So in all walks of life, you find that personal strife or personal denial or disrespect leads to huge changes. Gandhi was thrown out of a compartment in Pietermaritzburg, and that got us independence. Narayan Murthy, something similar happened, and that led to the democratization of the Indian corporate space. Corporate governance came in because of that. For me and Vani, our bankruptcy led us to look at workplace happiness. So I think personal agony, often, a boy was not able to go to his home for Diwali because he could not get a bus. When I say boy, I mean at my age, he would have been a boy at that age, and at 23, 24, he was working in Bangalore and he couldn't go, and that's how Red Bus as a business came about. You know that story, Fanindra Murthy, right? Fanindra Sama, sorry. And so these things lead to something big, and so we should not discount our personal experiences in any way. And it's very true that when you start the process of telling that story, the catharsis kind of flows through you, and that's how you were able to get it all done in 2 hours.
One more thing to it is when you write from your true agony of heart, or whatever it is you call it, I don't want to define that term, but when you write from your heart, maybe you wouldn't have the various thousands of meanings that you get attached to it later, and maybe others could attach to it later. You may not know that.
Yes.
So that's why I say it becomes something which is coming out of your understanding about your life. You cannot separate a story from your understanding about life.
Very true, very true.
That's why there is no competition for writing. What I write and what AVIS writes, or what many respected persons here write, will have their own individual understanding about life.
Very true. Fantastic point. And the second point he made very beautifully, the creation surpasses the creator. If you look at many stories around us, the Tata Group has been through so much of turmoil in the last few months, yet it stands steady because somewhere the creator, the founder of the Tata Group, had instilled a set of values, and so the creation survives this beyond the creator. And they say that the greatest form of fame is immortality, and in a way Gunaa will surpass John, will surpass Ilayaraja, will surpass Kamal, and all of that. So at this point, with John's permission, we'll take a short break. We'll play a little clip from Gunaa because we want you to understand the depth of what he said with the personification of the character and brought to life by the legendary Kamal. So can we play that clip, please?
இதான் நம்ம வீடு. தினமும் அங்க உட்காந்து இங்க இருந்து காட்ட வேடிக்கை பார்க்கலாம். படுத்துக்க பயந்துருச்சு. ஏய் ஏய் பயப்படாத, நாங்க தான். அதுவும் பயப்படுது ஒன்ன மாதிரி. இதான் நம்ம சமையல். கொஞ்ச நாளைக்கு நான் சமைச்சிடறேன், அப்புறம் எல்லாம் நீதான். குறும்பாடு கிடைக்கும், காட்டுக்கோழி கிடைக்கும். நீ சைவமா அசைவமா? கறியெல்லாம் திம்பல அப்படின்னு நானே காரம் ஜாஸ்தி போடாம.
உனக்கு என்ன வேணும்? பணமா? எத்தனை லட்சம்? எத்தனை லட்சம்? நான் தர சொல்றேன். கேஷ், செக், நான் தர சொல்றேன். நான் யார் தெரியுமா? தங்க வேணுமா? கோல்ட்? ஏன் இடக்கேற தர சொல்றேன். ப்ளீஸ் ப்ளீஸ் என்ன விட்டுடு. என்ன வேணும் உனக்கு?
எவ்வளவு அழகான குரல், இவ்வளவு அழகான குரலை வச்சுட்டு என் கூட பேசாம வீச்சு வீச்சுன்னு கத்துறிய. சரி, நீ சைவமா அசைவமானு சொல்லலையே. நான் சைவமும் சமைப்பேன், அசைவமும் சமைப்பேன். கத்து ரொம்ப கூறு. ஆடு வெட்ட கத்து இது விளையாடு.
Sorry. sorry, sorry.
என்ன சாரி? எவ்வளவு ரத்தம் பத்தியா? இது உனக்காயிருந்தா தாங்குவியா? சரி போனா போது. இனிமே இது மாதிரிலாம் செய்யாது. அந்த கத்தி கொடு.
முடியாது. நான் இங்க இருக்க முடியாது. நான் போணும். என்ன விட்டுடு ப்ளீஸ்.
ஏன்?
ஏன்னா நீ பைத்தியம், பைத்தியம்.
அப்ப ஏன் லட்டு கொடுத்த? அப்ப ஏன் லட்டு கொடுத்த? ஏன் மணி அடிக்க வச்ச? மணி அடிக்கும் போது எதுக்கு என்ன பார்த்து சிரிச்ச? பொம்மையும் ஒன்ன கை காட்டுச்சு. நான் முத்தம் கொடுத்தல, கையில முத்தம் கொடுத்தல நானு. அப்ப சும்மா இருந்துட்டு இப்ப பைத்தியம் பைத்தியம் எப்படி? கண்ண கண்ண காட்டி பேசிட்டு இப்ப போறேன்னு எப்படி காரில் அடிச்சுட்டு அப்படியே போயிருக்க வேண்டியதானே? ஏன் போல? ஏன் போக முடியாது? என்ன புரிஞ்சு போக முடியாது. இன்னொரு வாட்டி நான் யாரு நீ யாருன்னு கேட்காத. எனக்கு தெரியும் நீ அபிராமி. இதான் நம்ம வீடு.
So, I thought it would be relevant to see the film again in the context of what he just shared.
Thanks, Avis, for showing this film. You know, it's a great.
It's my favorite scene from the film.
Yeah,
so
thank you very much.
So I showed a personal favorite. So, so we now know as Venkat said, we now know the story behind the story. So there we are. Let me ask you a question. So this idea of storytelling, or the passion for telling stories, was it ingrained in you, or did you notice it at an early age in life? How did it all happen that you got into the world of storytelling?
That's a very interesting question, because I never thought I could be a writer. I was a qualified accountant. I learned BCom and then went for CA, and then my dad has small business which was jute business, which I was selling jute there. But I never thought that I would go into writing. And it's a very long story, but at the same time, very accidentally I was supposed to contribute to writing, because one of my friends, who we shared the same bench from 3rd standard, was Navodaya Appachan's son, Jose. And it's through him, he invited me because I used to read stories, and I used to share events with him, you know. So I happened to write a screenplay without knowing what to write or how to write a screenplay, without knowing the principles of writing a screenplay. I just wrote it, and one of my friends, a mother who is no more, whose mother happened to read, she was a great fan of Mammootty, you know, in his 70s, she was 75, and she said, this is a great story, why can't Jose take it, and kind of stuff. And so I was invited to go for that, and then eventually I wrote Gunaa, and Gunaa became, Chanakyan, and Chanakyan was respected among the audience, and overnight I was called a screenwriter. And then I had to learn what screenwriting was from there. So this is actually...
This is how it happened.
It happened.
So this is...
So then my family and my friends, maybe not my friends entirely, but my family, my mother, my brothers, everyone was against me going into writing, screenwriting, because they told movie is an immoral place to be in writing. So I just pleaded with them, give me 5 years and see how it works. So I was actually going on a 5-year plan. And by God's grace, it's my 6th 5-year plan.
And you're still there.
Yes,
and
I'm
still
still
relevant.
here. Yeah,
Fantastic.
thank you very much.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think what you can pick up here is that here is a man who is an accountant, and then who has a, calling from life. It is not his life's calling yet, but it is a calling from life. An opportunity arises, and he goes on to leverage that opportunity. So how did you convince your family? Oh, you said that you told them, give me 5 years.
Yeah, it's
So you
still
said, I will take a 5-year break from accounting and jute and the business.
Now that business is all wound up, so
right,
they
right.
can't push me into that business anymore.
But that's how you do it. I think in business we often say, and I've heard great leaders and entrepreneurs say this, if you hide from the risk, you hide from the rewards. So risk taking is very integral to business, and risk taking is very integral to life. I'm not talking about playing with your life. I'm talking about learning to live a fuller life. And I think that can come only when you seize opportunities. And I might have still talked to John Edathattil, the chartered accountant, right?
No, not at all.
But
I never
I think I
practiced.
prefer talking
I never
to
wanted to practice. I never practiced. I'm not in that group. I wanted to be known as John Edathattil, the writer. And but it used to help me when it comes to budgeting. It was a great help. Budgeting a movie or the kind of things that I am looking forward to implement now, it could be a great help, or at least even the curriculum is all different now. I know, you know it better.
But I think no experience in life goes waste. So in your career, even in films, you've not restricted yourself to just screenwriting. There are many people who just keep the focus and keep looking at the same part of the filmmaking process. But you've been an actor, you've been a director, you've been an executive producer, and now I understand because of your accounting background, you would have been a great executive producer because you would have been very tight on the budgets.
Yes.
You would have. So how does that happen? What trait in you led you to wear many hats and experiment with all of them?
Acting, I am very clear about it, because acting came because I look like a terrorist. So that's how my acting came. There was nothing more to it. In Kuruthipunal, there was this. Kuruthipunal, by the way, was a remake of a movie called Drohakal. And so when I reworked on that, there were certain characters which came up from the original, extra characters were there. One of them was a character called Narasimham. And at that time, I had a little more of hair, and I was wearing a different kind of a glass spectacle, and I looked like Shivarashan, the terrorist of that time. So then they asked me, why don't you do that? I said, okay, I think I can manage it because I look like one, so it's easy. So that's how my acting happened. With the direction part of it, I think every writer, when you write a screenplay, you direct, because you visualize when you write. So basically, that's the source to any visual that's happening on screen. You basically have that flyer. At the same time, at that time, to coordinate the equipments or the process of production, that was what actually directors very enviably or excellently handled. But I think that was not a big deal in a way. Once you have the visual, when you have the emotion stretch moving further up and the story which is going through your movie or you're visually supporting that, then to execute that visual becomes easy. Then of course for the production and executive production and distribution kind of thing, I had this great ambition to make a movie or direct a movie where I produce, I write, and try to distribute, because we can identify a market, a product, and make a product accordingly. This was my understanding of a movie. Because when you make certain compromises, as you do in entrepreneurship or in corporate ways, you need to make compromises in many ways. So when you know this as a writer and as a director, if you compromise within your concept and your emotional framework, it's easy for you to produce it. And I would say the tricky part of it is to define the market of your product that you write. So unlike other products, this movie is a product which is unique, like a family or a character. So when you make a product, I think it carries a very special and a very definite market which you need to identify. So if this was actually my ambition to go into production
So
and
did it work?
distribution.
I mean, did
In
you
a way,
Okay.
but I also fell like a rose petal. Maybe not exactly like a rose petal, but I tried that, and I had a misfortune with one of my projects, and then again I had to come back to writing, and still I am trying to make that work, because now the equipments of movie making has become very democratized now. Anybody can handle those equipments. It's very handy and it's very inexpensive to use these equipments. So I think it's a very favorable time for movies now. And movies are getting into new frontiers. New markets are opening up, especially in augmented reality or virtual reality products which are coming up.
Right.
Excellent things are coming up. So I think I should venture into that. I am trying to do that.
Very nice. So that's your story of how you wore those different hats. Very interesting. By the way, for those of you who were wondering what the reference, the light-hearted reference to the rose petal is, it's the title of my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal, where I share the lessons we have learned from our life experience of our bankruptcy. But coming back to John's answer, a brilliant answer there, and it reminds me to connect the dot here about as an entrepreneur, you cannot restrict yourself to only the CEO's or the leader's role. You have to know manufacturing, you have to know distribution, you have to know R&D, you have to know people management, you have to know cash flow management, and a whole host of all aspects of the business. And that's really what John's career story talks about, you know, the ability to know the entire process of filmmaking. So I see a great parallel there.
Yes, yes, Avis, yes.
I have a question. Given the fact that you came with an accounting background, and thanks to Jose, your friend, you got an introduction to screenwriting. Still, I think if you take our processes as managers, as entrepreneurs, when we take a product to the market, there are chances that our products may work at least in a part of the market, right? And the process of going to market itself is not fraught with so much risk. Whereas in your case, when you take a story and go from producer to producer or filmmaker to filmmaker, chances of rejection are very high. And secondly, even after the process of acceptance has gone through, every Friday, the audience just rejects summarily a whole host of efforts. And if you fall within, your effort falls in that basket, you know, you're gone. All the effort of maybe a few years is gone.
Yes.
So how does one handle rejection and bounce back from it? How do you keep the vision intact for you as a screenwriter or as a filmmaker when you are subjected to so much rejection and ridicule?
See, I think unlike the corporate rejection, what I feel is a creative product, or like a movie or a script, is unperishable. It's always connected with a blueprint, or we are writing a screenplay to emote something on the screen. So when you pitch this to a producer, like what we were saying that maybe when you go to a video shop, or when you decide to see a movie a weekend, why do we decide to watch a movie which is humorous? There may be another movie which is horror. There could be a thriller. There could be a romantic comedy. All these movies are there. Some people will go for a selective, a particular selection to experience a certain emotion.
Right.
So likewise, when a writer intends to write and bring out an emotion, he should be confident to do that at some point of time. Maybe after a week's time or a couple of weeks' time, I may not be confident to produce a happiness. I may be good at producing sadness. So likewise, when you pitch this to a producer, he may want to produce happiness as a movie, or sadness, or romantic comedy as a movie. So he rejects your script, which is happiness and not romantic comedy.
Okay, okay.
This may go well with another producer, or this may go well with the same producer after 1 year. So this is what I mean by rejection. If you make a good script, it always will find its place because it's in great demand because you're selling emotions. If the script is good, even if after 2 years, I have done screenplays which worked, which could work even after 10 years. We rework on it a little bit according to the present day situations, and then it still works. So when we work on this rejection, it shouldn't be taken personal. It should be taken as another attempt to find a person who is looking for it.
Right, right. The right target audience.
The right target and the right demand.
Right demand, right.
That's what I think.
Fantastic. I think the one learning I pick up is that there is nothing to be taken personal. When you're rejected, it's not a rejection of your effort or of the idea itself. It's probably that stakeholder whom you're targeting is not ready yet for it or does not want it yet. And so you move on and you keep trying.
Yes, and one more thing is, like definite products, you don't know your audience basically. You don't personally know your audience. You are just, when you try to fill a blank paper, you are trying to think that this will work or this will produce the right kind of emotion they will enjoy or they get engaged to. And you work on it.
Right.
But sometimes you also can fail. Your assessment can fail. So generally, rejections happen when you don't know the market well, where you're targeting that and who you're approaching. This is what. And now I think the openings are a lot easier, and it has opened a lot more of doors for any writer to come up with the right product.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing is that when you are in the business of selling an idea, you actually have to be a great salesman, right? You have to be a salesperson, and which is true of us managers as well. Whether we are taking the idea to a board, whether we are taking the idea to the market, whether we are talking among our team, I think you've got to be a great salesperson. And that's what I'm picking up from you, that if A is not buying it, then go to B. Yes. And go to C, and probably 1 year later pitch it again to A again with a different flavor. To go back to the story of Lagan was rejected by Amir Khan itself over a 3-year period, and in the same 3-year period it was rejected by Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan, and finally because of Ashutosh requesting Amir to consider it again in a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth story sitting session, he finally bought it and decided to not only buy it but also produce it. So I think there's a great learning there.
Yes, it's like story itself. It's like life itself. If you get succumbed to the obstacle, so every story is like that. The hero, the conflict arises when you have a goal, then the goal is obstructed, and even with the obstruction, you go ahead to achieve the goal. Then comes the conflict. That gives you the emotion part of it. The same way is how we pitch what we have made. So once you achieve that goal finally, then actualization or the catharsis happens.
Beautiful. Thank you for explaining that. I have another question. When I see your career, so John's not only written screenplay for films, not only has he been in the feature film business, he's made documentaries, he's made ad films, he makes corporate films, and you also have done television shows. So that's a great amount of body of work. Now, isn't there, at least in the minds of some people, isn't there something called, you are a feature filmmaker and you are a documentary filmmaker? Isn't there a kind of a racism outlook prevalent? How do you beat that?
I think I don't know how to beat it, because that depends on how you value a creative product. So again, coming to that, we have a general notion that when you write for movies, especially dramatic movies, which are released in theaters, that's the greatest achievement one can have. But that needn't be. Everything has its own market. Where it gets successful is what matters. So nowadays, I think television also is getting into some other format, basically. It is based on web series is the need of the hour, or which is working out very well because people want to watch it in their small screen with mobile phones. So how can it be a smaller thing when it compared to a television, series or a movie? It needn't be. It is a product for a certain market. So I think there is nothing like differentiating it in certain grades or values. You are actually doing something as a creative, for a creative value, and if you can achieve it from that value, from that platform, well.
So what you're basically saying is that the art form does not have any strata,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
And at another level, it's only a form of expression for the creator.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So again, there is nothing wrong with the platform.
Absolutely.
So what he's basically saying, and that's very relevant to all of us, is that there is great dignity in pursuing your art, your craft, and expressing through it. And doesn't matter whether you're doing it for the big screen or for the small screen or for a mobile platform. It doesn't matter whether you're a listed company or whether you are a pawn shop level kirana guy operating somewhere. If you're creating value for your customers and you're giving them great service, I think that's your expression,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely,
That's where
absolutely.
I would draw the inference. Beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about Screenwrite.in, your venture. I can't even call it new because you've been at it for 10 years now.
Yes, yes.
So
this was started in 2009.
Okay.
And maybe a couple of years back, but I got it organized in 2009. The whole idea was, I used to, even from 1989, when I did Chanakyan, I used to give producers or writers, directors, completed screenplays, written. There was no computers at that time, so I used to write by hand and do rewrites. I used to give complete scripts. The point is, when you take it to a director or even an actor, for that matter, they don't want to read that script, or they don't like to read that script. They don't want to assess the script by reading. Instead, they want to hear the story. You need to narrate the story. By the time you narrate the story, half of them will sleep, and then after that, they say that it's a great story. So this was one thing which I wanted to cut out from the industry, where even the actors, anyone who is connected to making movies, should assess the product by reading a screenplay, because that's a product, that's a document which is the blueprint or the best document that you can ever have before making a movie. So it's with this intention that I started Screenwrite.in. It was a perilous journey. It was not giving me any sort of easy walkways to popularize it, and people wouldn't buy it. People say that, why should you write a screenplay? I'm wasting my time. I want to learn direction. I don't want to learn writing, because writing is, I don't need a screenplay at all. So why should I spend $20,000 or $25,000 for this program? Instead, I can join a film school or spend ₹1 lakh or 5 lakhs of rupees to learn direction. But I found people coming in over a period of time. Now, slowly, the change of times have contributed to more people interested to learn screenwriting. And now, even screenwriting, I am trying to take it to other avenues of education and even corporate leadership. I'm taking those kind of activities through Screenwrite.in. Still, I have to grow a lot more on that. There were a lot of people who helped me out with this. Still, I am trying to find, I would say, my whole idea was to bring it as a screenwriter's studio, which was the first time concept here in India, where anybody who wants to write can come in, have a cup of coffee, and we will provide all the facilitations to write the kind of screenplay they want to write.
So they bring their story, and you give them the environment.
Yes, we give them even the support.
Space,
yes,
the
and the support also.
Okay.
So over these years, I have found excellent screenplays written by young minds who couldn't have the opportunity to go straight to people and pitch it. So I am now gathering all this with due copyrights connected with them, and then trying to find markets as a marketplace where anybody can come in and pick and read screenplays and assess it and talk with the writer and then go ahead with that.
So I heard Karan Johar on his show a couple of weeks back on his Coffee with Karan, and he was talking to 3 filmmakers, Imtiaz Ali, Zoya Akhtar and Kabir Khan, and all 3 of them concurred, and all 4 of them are directors, concurred that nobody reads screenplays, even in their space.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
So I was quite shocked because the way I met John, by the way, or I came to know about John, by the way, was through a screenwriting workshop that in which he was in the panel discussion. Vani and I like to experiment a lot with life, so somebody sponsored us, so we went for the screenwriting workshop, and just to learn, we are consumers of films, but how do films get made? So at that workshop is where I saw John for the first time, and he made a lot of sense in that panel discussion. So when you attend a workshop like that, when you consume a film, you always think that there has been a grandiose plan, and that plan is the screenplay, and that plan is getting actualized through the director and the actors into the film. That's the way we imagine it to be.
Yes.
But when I heard 3 top directors or 4 top directors on the TV show, and now I'm hearing you say that people don't read it and they go to sleep, how do you deal with that sense of, you know, what are we trying to do, change a world which doesn't want to change? You know, don't you get hit by that?
No,
How
I
do you
think it has to change. Definitely it has to change. This is not the way to make movies. And there is a lot of money invested into it. I think this is one place when you need to assess a product which you are giving out to a targeted audience or a special audience. You need to assess it in terms of money. So how do you assess a product saying that everything is in my head and I know how to make it? I can make it within 45 days or 25 days, but I don't know materially what I have to do these 45 days. So this is a great adventure or misadventure. So I just want to make it an adventure.
Rather than a misadventure. I think what we see here John say, you know, when he says, no, it will change, I'm trying to tell him that even now contemporary directors up there in Bollywood, and he's talking from, he also works in that space, but he's also talking from dealing with people in this part of the country, are not embracing this philosophy, you know, and yet he says it will happen. You know, there is a word called doggedness. And I think all visionary people have a sense of doggedness. I asked Dr. Pratap Reddy recently, what is the you know, secret for the fact that he stayed so long, you know, waited so long for the healthcare boom to happen in India. And he said, I lost my patient because of lack of healthcare facilities in India, and I wanted to make sure that at some point in India, people don't have to necessarily travel abroad for treatment. And so the doggedness, it's taken more than 35 years for him to get to this point where people now come into India to his hospitals or to other hospitals in India, not just to his hospital. So this doggedness which entrepreneurs are always invited to have or display is what I'm picking up from you, John.
Yes, of course.
It's a tough journey, right? It's
a
very
tough
difficult.
journey.
It's like banging your head against a wall.
Yes,
right?
It is a tough journey. But now I realize that even young makers of short films, you know, they make a few short films from their own pockets. And then they realize that now the 5th one I can't afford because I have lost so much of money, and then I need to write something down before I make it. So maybe they learn it by trial and error, or some people really want to know that. Well, in Hollywood there are also people who ask for scripts. They want to read it. I think in our
I
industry,
think even in India there are some people who do invest that time, but culturally we are not there yet.
yes,
right?
I'm not saying that you have to be completely in this you know, analytics about screenplay and other things, but you need a document at least to assess the general values of emotion and the money involved in it.
And this is what they call the bound script, right?
Yes,
Right?
yes, or even a speculative screenplay for that matter, even if it's not a very detailed kind of script.
I want to ask you about the other side of screenwrite.in, what you do with the corporates. How do you think people sitting here, how do you think they can express
exactly.
themselves with their stories? You know, is it possible at all?
I think it is. It is because one, I want to tell you that any corporate activity, maybe you say that it's connected with prudence. I was telling Vani there, we all give a lot of prudence to this corporate activity, and say that passionate decision making may fall flat because you can't afford to lose. You can be defeated in many ways in your decision making. But I realize that a lot of passion will go into this, in the kind of story that you develop out of your activity. There is a lot to talk about it, but I'm just explaining it in very few words, where everything that you can connect with the emotion of doing will have a great more impact than data-based analytics alone. When you make a presentation or a PowerPoint presentation, how can you make it into a story so that the product is connected as a character to the client or character to the consumer? Then the reactions are a lot better, and the reactions will definitely be a lot more.
So that's what you're trying to
This is what
do
I'm
in
trying to
your
say.
workshops.
Yes, I'm trying to give workshops connecting the story element to corporate activities.
And are people beginning to wake up to that sense?
I think a couple of them have happened, and I think there is a very good response to it, especially in the decision-making levels. And in training, it becomes a great tool. How well you can train a segment or inside interdepartmental training, even in reporting for that matter, story works.
Fantastic. I know for sure because you know, I have been a victim of death by PowerPoint. You know, there's this great line which is that God created Bill Gates, and Bill Gates created Microsoft, and Microsoft created PowerPoint, and then the world went to sleep. So the whole corporate janta, and I think PowerPoint has invaded every part of the world, including this slide over here, which was there up there a little while ago, was a PowerPoint slide. We are all burdened with PowerPoint. And so having been a victim of PowerPoint, at least when we did presentations or when we do workshops, one of the things we try to bring in is a personal element, a story. And we have found it connecting a lot. For example, I do workshops on purpose, vision, and values. And when I tell them the story of the catharsis that Vani and I have gone through, and we say we found our purpose of inspiring happiness from our values of integrity, truth, companionship, and honesty, and we have a vision to touch 2 billion lives and inspire them to happiness, people connect because it's coming from a personal story of loss, and from a personal story of which could have been despondency and depression, but has instead, we both have decided to look at abundance. So personal stories are very, very powerful. Yes, I can totally relate to what you're saying.
And I think there is a connectivity, a physio-psychological connectivity of this particular thing called stories or drama that works in every person, which is a great study by itself. So once you come to terms with those elements, then we realize that it should surely work. It has to work, and it works.
So one of the things that you can do going back at your work, whether you're working as a small businessman or you're training people in workshops, or whether you're a business leader with a large team, go tell a personal story the next time, you know, and credit it to John.
Yes.
We
are actually working a particular workshop exclusively on the faculty for engineering and business school faculty. How stories can be a great part, play a great part in their teaching. Especially when you work a story on quadratic equation.
Wow.
That's the
I
story.
would have probably passed math if you had been the teacher, John. You know?
Absolutely. So this thing works. This will work. It can work.
Fantastic. So I think with John's story of screenwrite.in, what I'm picking up is he's got a great vision, and he's got the doggedness to last the journey. And I think he needs good advocates, and some of us can be those advocates.
Please, please, I require all that.
Right. So
all your
please
help.
do pick up your copy of an introduction to screenwrite.in from John before you leave. At this point, I'm going to go for questions from the audience. I'm requesting the audience to stay back for the Q&A so that you can get my free hugs. And I'm requesting you to keep your questions to questions and not to comments or observations. So shoot your questions and John will be happy to answer them. First question, yes sir.
You told the first you connected to the movie Chanakyan. Chanakyan itself is a very excellent movie. Can you tell something about that? Because that is the first connection what I got to the movie field.
I'll tell in a very brief, it's a long connectivity. Chanakyan, we wrote a script which didn't work. And me and Rajiv, Rajiv is quite an emotional person. When the movie didn't work, he usually cries, you know. So immediately after that, he came to my house and we were staying together for some time and thought we could make a documentary in mimicry. Because Rajiv himself is a mimicry actor. And there were two mimicry groups in Kerala. One was in Trivandrum, which was Rajiv's, and one was Kalabhavan, where in Kochi, where Jairam and other groups were working. But then we thought we could make a documentary in how these people make new concepts for to make people laugh. And so we were working on it, and then Raji was telling me that there is something which is happening between these two groups. Because in Kochi, they used to be very, very discreet to make their program so that the other guy wouldn't know what they are making. And this group will very, very ardently put themselves together and say that we'll make this so that they won't come to know about it. But somewhere or other, this will leak. Somewhere or other, when they come to how discreetly they work, when they come to the stage, they realize that the other group is making the same way they are doing. So how does it work? And then they inquired about it and found that there was a girl in this group who was in love with a boy in the other group. So this is how this got leaked. And so this was one turn which worked to go into a dramatic form instead of a documentary. And then at that time there was a news caption which came in Time magazine that when President Reagan was giving a talk on a TV, somebody jammed the TV and made a fun show. These were the three parameters in which Chanakyan came.
Okay.
And it was written in 18 days, and the first draft was 450 pages, and I had to rewrite it for about 100 times.
Wow.
When there was no computers.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking that question. Wonderful question, wonderful answer. Yes. Next, yes sir, at the back.
Good evening. I'm Satish here.
Yes,
Sir, my question to you is, it is a evolution. I mean, any industry is just passing through this. It starts one way and technology is transferring it to other dimension. Not exactly referring to a technology point of view. I understand that any industry passes that, but in the emotional or the other point of view. So, from your experience, from your point of view, how does the cinema, that's a fraternity as a society, 25 years back and today it is. Not in technology point of view, anything else you see from your eyes.
No, you mean to say, is it technology which is which plays a role in these 25 years, or is it some other thing?
Other than technology, not technology.
Other than technology.
Other than technology.
Other than technology, has cinema evolved, and how?
Yeah, I think what evolution or that I find here today is about the extent of emotions that you play in a movie is different. When we used to play that pure love in older cinema or cinema which was 25 or 30 years back, it doesn't work that way in today's portrayal of emotions. Maybe because of change of lifestyles, maybe change of outlooks. So the society will carry certain social changes or emotions that connected with that social change may be seen in the stories that evolve today. So take a movie like Dangal, for example. The technology plays a role, but at the same time, the emotions are very, very true. It is about challenging. At some point, you cry because it's the girl challenges the father. So earlier, maybe this kind of a thing wouldn't have worked because there may not have been those kind of life situations prevalent at those times. Now, contributing to the technology, or when you come up with mobile phones or the Facebook that works, you know, you come to a status that your status is, it is complicated. It's just complicated. I don't know what type of complication it is, but it is complicated. But you get something, you know something about it, and you are attached to it. You give meanings to it. So that has a relevance to the emotional change that you see in present-day cinema, or characters that come up. Yeah.
Fantastic. Your question, sir. 1 second, I'll go. Yeah, to you, young man.
We are seeing quite a bit of sports movies of late. When are we going to see management sports?
That's a great question. Actually, I want to discuss you in person about it, because I'm greatly honored to face this forum. We were actually talking to AVIS 1 month back, when AVIS and Vani and AVIS, we met at a cafe. I'm actually looking at stories with brands as protagonists. We have worked stories like that. It's not exactly, maybe there are human characters in it, but it's not an in-film presentation. It's not an in-film presentation, or
It's not a placement, that's what
it's not a placement. It is, the character is the brand. The character is a car. The character is an antivirus. I think that's what I would like to associate with this management group. We will definitely come up with those stories in the short future.
That's his vision. I think the gentleman in front wants the question. We'll give it to him, and then I'll come to you, sir. We have time. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Ravikumar Stephen. The question is, in movies they say story, then screenplay, and the script. And while selling the product, should we go with the script or with the story itself is enough?
Sir,
Because I'm told, in those days, if certain cinematographer or photographer is doing a cinema, you know, they pitch upon, if Vincent is working on camera, it's good. If this particular screenwriter is doing the film, then it is good. So, now what is the current trend?
no, I think that trend is slightly shifted now, because there are a new, look at a movie currently appreciated called Dhruvangal 16. D12, they call it. It's done by a 22-year-old boy who made an excellent film thematically, or rather pictorially, and as a filmmaking, it's a good product. And he approached so many producers to pitch this, and they said no. And finally, his father had to produce that film, and ultimately the success is phenomenal. So there are many, many young talents which are coming up, because I told you earlier, the movie making process has been a lot democratized now. I can make a movie with a mobile phone. I can make a movie with an SLR camera with a 2K facilitation or 4K facilitation. But you need to know what you are going to make out of it. So the markets also are developing. Markets also are shifting. So now, in an absolutely commercial mainstream cinema, these things can work, because there is a lot of investment into it. So they invest in a star, or in the crew which are stars in the industry, and they make investment, and then they popularize it, they advertise it, publicize it in such a way that their immediate revenue happens to that product. That's what stardom plays in any product. It's only for immediacy of returns. Otherwise, smaller products with great values are coming up, and it's working in many, many platforms in movies. I'm not talking just to this commercial theater, mainstream cinema. There are lots of other platforms coming up.
Sir, your question. Well, I'll come to you, sir, at the back.
Hope I answered your question.
In the absence of a screenplay, how do directors like Edathattil and all have any control on what they are trying to convey?
See, sir, I don't think that they don't have a screenplay.
They do have.
They do have a screenplay. It's all in their head. See, I'll give you an example. I'm not naming who it is. They may have this great, vibrant story in visual working, which could be very precisely done. I respect their talent and geniuses to do that. But one thing is this. When I knew a great friend of mine who is a very talented, proven screenwriter and a director. He will never write a script. He will sleep well. And the night he will think of so many things and goes to sleep by around 3 o'clock. And 8 o'clock shift, the whole crew is waiting for that 5 pieces of paper, 5 sheets of paper. It will never come. It comes by around 11 o'clock. And then they know what is inside the pages. Then they go for what should be picturized and the properties to be collected. So the shooting happens, or it starts by around noon. This is the difference. So when you need to finish a movie within 25 days, it may go up to about 40 days.
So there is a bleed in terms of budget, time and all that. But just to clarify on that Imtiaz Ali point, I think the conversation I quoted had the 4 directors concurring on the fact that screenplays are a must, but actors, especially heroes, don't want to read screenplays. So it was a lament rather than an admission that they don't have screenplays. So
And one more development which is happening is the present type of screenplays also may shift with the technology which is coming up. So you may be actually seeing a crude form of your movie per se as a screenplay, and then you execute it. So that technology is happening. So you may not have to, maybe this may not work like that in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, sir.
You
I'll
made
come
the.
to you, sir. I'll come to you.
I'm Narayanan. You had made the shift from spinning jute to spinning out stories. What were you aiming at? Were you aiming at dishing out information or bringing out transformation?
Sir, I was not, actually I was not selling jute per se. I was reading books. That was happening in one way, but at the same time, one thing triggered me to write was, I used to see a lot of movies. And I had a clique of about 16 friends who we used to meet every evening, and we used to discuss about what was wrong about this. This dialogue could have been a lot better. This scene couldn't be like this. We used to pick nits on many things that was happening around us. So at some point of time, there was an urgent question in me that what could be a movie without all these questions? And I started writing something. And I started writing about what I could see on a specific frame. This was my first, self-taught attempt to write a screenplay. And then I managed to write something. That's what Madhu's Amma read and said it was good at that point of time, and then triggered me to some other thing. But again, of course, I never thought of any transformation. I was actually following a certain thing which interested me at that point of time, and I followed it with passion. Against certain odds that was coming by from family conditions that this will not work for you. But still I pursued it. I had a lot of difficulties, of course.
Ramesh, I'll have to come here, and then last question to you, Ramesh. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
And after that, an observation. Has your script ever been stolen by any producer?
It was always been.
So that answers your question. Yeah. You can
I
ask the
even
rest of
am
it offline.
afraid to whistle a tune in my bathroom. Whistling tunes in the bathrooms. Sometimes you don't know, there could be a song, and I'm just joking, but at the same time, this pilfering, I won't call it infringement per se. This is, I don't accuse people that way, because we all are affected by things that happen around you, affected by what we hear, what we see, what we read. So naturally that can happen. But at the same time, your only choice is to come up with another one. That's what I think.
That's a very good spirit. I'll take your second question.
I have a couple of projects which is written, which hopefully in another 2-3 months' time, I will be on to it.
Okay.
And one observation.
Yes.
The reason basically I think was that, you know, when you give them a script of 200 pages, they don't want to spend time on that.
Yes.
They would rather listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And they're able to make a decision like this.
Yes, yes.
And the other thing is, I mean, the other reason is that they are not listening to only one story. Probably every day they are listening to a different story. And so whatever attracts them, they immediately hook onto that.
Yeah, I fully agree to what you say. When there are even script readers employed by production houses nowadays because they can't read the entire scripts coming up. But one thing is, suppose if the writer is not good at speaking out well, articulating his story to a prospective producer, he may have written an excellent script, but he may not be good at articulating it well.
That's one way of looking at it, John. The other side is also when we discuss business ideas and we decide to invest in a project, I think when the idea appeals, then you ask for a business plan and then you convince yourself. I think the screenplay pretty much comes in as a plan there.
Yes, nowadays I think the formal things come with a one-pager and then or a
Executive
logline
summary and
then
a
you
very
go, if
detailed.
you are interested, then you go and pitch it to them. That kind of a system is come up.
I'll go to the
Settle
last
down.
question for the evening. For want of time, let's go to Ramesh and then I'll hand it over to Venkat.
Well, with you have worked with very serious music directors like Ilayaraja and all, who is able to give the real emotional flavor to the every shot, every scene, every length of the film. And so, do you have the habit of telling Ilayaraja also the entire screenplay by which he get into his system and he breathes music through the 9 to 9 call sheet?
Yes, of course. I was just telling Vani, the other room, that when we were narrating this story of a person trying to write a letter to a girl who she has to write because he doesn't know how to write, and ask her to write the letter for her. This was that the movie, which the scene which was narrated to Ilayaraja sir, and that song transpired out of 30 minutes.
Kanmani.
It took just 30 minutes that the whole thing and the tune and the thing came up. So definitely these music directors, we narrate the story to ignite their emotions to work on the music.
Now, I'm speaking from the re-recording point of view. For that also?
Absolutely.
I'll just do a rap.
That can be seen in most of the films
Yeah.
that we work.
Thank you.
And in Chanakyan, here a reference is, in Chanakyan, the thriller music, you might remember there is a music which happens with the thriller and the emotional side of Kamal's character, Johnson's character. That was actually prepared first.
Oh.
And then the shots were made with the music running along with that. So music played a great role in that movie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Yes.
So I think it's been a fantastic conversation, John. It's been beautiful. I'll request everyone to hold on for just a few more minutes. I'll do a quick wrap. I think what we picked up from John is this fabulous ability to visualize and to work on that vision. As far as screenwrite.in is concerned, the vision is not an easy one. I think his entire journey has been very adventurous, but Screenwrite, I think, would be your biggest adventure. It's a deep dive into the unknown,
yes.
right?
I need all the prayers and support from all of you.
Always there, always there.
Yeah.
And I want to quote Steven Spielberg here. He said, "You shouldn't dream your film, you should go make it." And John's story is pretty much like that. We can all sit here and hope for a more democratized film world where people trust each other and give credit. And to the gentleman's question on has your script been stolen, I hope someday will come when people say it's impossible to steal a script, you know.
Yeah.
And that credit would go to somebody like John in this part of the country. So ladies and gentlemen, on that note, let's give John a big hand.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. I'll hand it over to Venkat now, and my promise of free hugs is there. Thank you for staying back, everyone, for the Q&A. Over to you, Venkat.
So I'm sure all of you would agree with me that we've had a fabulous session of something that we've not heard for a few years, at least from this platform. So I thank AVIS for bringing over John here. And until 2 hours ago that we came into this hall, if somebody told me that I always believed that, at least all of us would have believed that stories come out of imagination and imagination happens in the brain. So this is the first time that I heard someone say that stories come out of the heart, and if you could write from the heart, then it turns out to be Gunaa. And if it's written out of brain, possibly it could run out for 100 days, but it may not have been remembered like Gunaa. So that is the difference that we carry home today. And you also told that how cow dung almost played such a vital role in getting a film close to Oscars. So nothing could be discounted in filmmaking. And with that note, I thank AVIS for once again bringing in John today to speak his heart to us. And of course, I'll request John to accept a token of love as a memento from the MMO. Please come on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this time that I shared with you.
Gentlemen, he's got some papers about himself and what he's doing. If somebody is interested, they could pick it up. All of you get back home safely. Good night.